Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I already did this video once and then my audio frigged up for some reason, so that's really annoying. But yeah, I'd like to wish you guys a really happy new year. Just enjoy it. Hopefully this year brings good tidings to everyone. Some people, 2023 might have been a bad year, some it might have been a good, whichever it was. Hopefully this year will be better, whichever way it went last year. So yeah, I spent it with my family. It was actually really nice. The case that we're going to be looking into today is a really horrific one, and it's one that we like to, even her family have like tried to use what happened to their daughter to like something good to come out of it. Basically, it is the case of Samantha Josephson, and it's all surrounding like the safety of Ubers and taxi services and things like that. So let's get into the case. Samantha Josephson was born in 1998, and her mother was called Marcy and her father was called Seymour. She also had a younger sister called Sydney. They were really happy, very close knit. Her and her sister were very, very close. She was a lovely, bubbly little kid, very intelligent, and just basically loved life. Samantha was also known as Sammy, so that may be how I refer to her. But basically she was studying political science, and she was a senior, and she was looking to apply to all these, well, one university actually, because she had her sights set on the one that she wanted to go to, which was the Drexel University, where she wanted to study law. So that was her career path that she wanted to go with. She wanted to become a law graduate, and she, like I said, she was very goal set, and like once she knew what she wanted to do, she would just go for it and would probably have achieved it as well. Like I said, she was very intelligent. She was said to have an infectious laugh as well, like one of those laughs that everyone laughs at their laugh, basically. It's just a genuinely really lovely girl. She also met her boyfriend, who was called Greg, in 2017, and they were very close. Kind of like soulmates, I suppose, because despite him having already graduated and moved away, they were making the long distance thing work. He lives like 2 hours away, and they would often drive down and up to see each other and spend time together. So they loved each other that much that no matter what, they wanted to try and make it work, and that's what they were doing. So let's jump to the 29th of March in 2019. And Sammy has received some bad news from a family member being ill. She was really stressed and upset, and just, you know how you would feel yourself if you've had some bad news off of a family member. So she was feeling pretty crappy, and she just wanted some support and love and comfort from Greg. Now, she did speak to Greg, but the thing was, he already had plans, and they'd actually planned to meet each other within 2 days. So I don't know whether she was going down there or he was going down there, whichever way. But they'd already planned to meet up. So basically he said, you know, obviously I want to be there with you, but I have got plans already, and I'm going to see you in a couple of days anyway. So why don't you arrange to go out with your friends instead? So Sammy was like, she didn't really want to go out, but she figured that it probably would take her mind off it, and, you know, he probably was right, because she wanted Greg to join them, but like I said, he had other plans, and so that was the alternate solution that they sort of agreed on. So Sammy, okay, she decides, all right then, let's do it. She arranges to go out with her friends, and she does so. They go to a place called 5 Points, and they have drinks and whatever. But Sammy, like I said, Sammy's head's not really in it, because she didn't really want to go in the first place, I suppose. So she thought she'd try it. Maybe it would be a distraction. Sometimes it is. But it wasn't really doing the job. It seemed like she was more interested in her phone all night than anything else, which, again, I can understand if she's going through some stuff at that time. So basically, eventually she does get separated from her friends by accident, And this is like 2 o'clock in the morning now, so she just decides to call it quits and go home. She calls Greg and lets him know that she's gonna go home. And she heads outside, and the CCTV outside of the bar catches this as well. She goes outside, and she's basically on the phone to Greg, and she's ordered an Uber, so she's waiting for that Uber to come. But I believe I read somewhere that, say the parking bay for the Uber is on the right as you go out of the bar, and that's where people wait, and that's where the Ubers come around too. She went the other way, so say it was on the right, she went left. And obviously the car, she wasn't waiting in the right area for her car, but she's on the phone to Greg, and then this silver car pulls sort of not into the bay, but sort of slows down and stops, and Sammy just tries to get in it immediately. But this car drives off because it's not her Uber, and some stranger is trying to get into the car. So they drive off, and Sammy's like, oh God, that's not my car. Anyway, next news, a black Chevy Impala pulls into like the bay, one of the bays, a disabled bay I think it was, and they don't even get a chance to stop before Sammy has opened the door and gotten in the car. She really wanted to get home. The thing was, oh, as well, she put the phone down to Greg at this point, right? And then he starts tracking her because they have a Find My Friend app. And Sammy shares that with Greg. They both track each other, and also their friends have it too. So they all sort of track each other. Oh, and with regards to her friends, the fact that they didn't know that Sammy had left, for starters, but it was normal for them to do that, for one to just wander off and go home. It was what they did. So the fact that Sammy may have gone missing at some point wasn't abnormal for their friend group. They just would have figured that if they noticed that she would have just gone home, because that was the norm for them. Although people should, in my opinion, personally, not do that. You should always at least stick as a two and tell people where you're going, because we live in such a dangerous world. Anyway, back to Sammy. Greg starts tracking her on her phone, but he notices that she's going the wrong way. Basically, she's heading not towards where she lives, and she told him that she was going to go straight home. So he thought it was really strange. And to me personally, for a person that has this kind of app, obviously it's something that you worry about, their safety. So I don't really understand why he didn't like try and do something then. But I suppose you just kind of think that it's never gonna happen, I guess, and it's not what, you're just paranoid and you might be overthinking it kind of thing. So anyway, he rings her friends, and they kind of think along the same lines, basically saying that maybe she left her phone in the car, and that is why it's gone off to the opposite direction. Sammy's got home, her phone's just in the Uber, and then at one point the phone stops sending out a signal, and that they think that it's just died or something like that. So with that in mind, he does go to sleep, and then her friends get home at like 5 a.m. They notice that her door's open and that she has not come home. Sammy's not there. So again, they don't really worry too much. They just figure that and they're probably drunk at this point too. It's 5 a.m. after all, and they've been out all night. Oh, she was part of a sorority. So I don't know whether this was in the sorority. I think it was, where she lived with different people. Anyway, they don't think much of it. She's probably just slept somewhere else. And so they go to bed too. But then in the morning, they wake up. Sammy's door's still open. Her work shoes are on the floor, which is abnormal because they're laid out as she had a shift that day. She worked in a restaurant or a bar, something like that. And she had a shift that day. Now, Sammy would never miss work, so they thought that was odd. Greg woke up in the morning having not received any news off of Sammy at all. So he then rings around, and the friends contact him, and they say that she's not come home and her work shoes are there. So basically he rings her work, and guess what? Sammy's not turned up for a shift. So he starts to really get worried at this point, and he starts to make the 2-hour journey down, tells the friends to report her as missing, and basically rings her parents too, which her mum actually said that she thought something was a bit off because she sent Sammy a message every morning saying good morning, and Sammy always replied, and this morning she hadn't. So she thought that was very strange herself. But her parents lived so far away. They lived like 11 hours away. So they jump in the car and start making the journey down. 11 hours in a car when your daughter is missing. That must have been the ultimate torture. Like driving all that way. I can't even imagine with such a worry. It's just beyond, I don't know. I can't imagine it. So eventually Greg manages to get there, meets up with the friends, etc., and they start investigating themselves. I don't know if this is before they reported it to the police. I think it might be. They go down to the bar that they knew she was last at, and he convinces the person, the owner, whatever, to show him the security footage because his girlfriend's missing. So the owner does, and they managed to spot Sammy straight away. They knew exactly what she was wearing and you know that she was there. So they spot her waiting outside. They spot her on the phone, which was to Greg because he knew he was on the phone to her. And then they see her try to get in the silver car. And then the black car that pulls up and Sammy gets into it. Now, before this, they actually found on Sammy's belongings or something, her email, or I'm not entirely sure what, that the Uber had cancelled. They had sent a cancellation fee because the Uber had never picked Sammy up. Basically, they had tried to, and it was a silver car, like a grey silver car, I think, that was supposed to pick her up. They had gone to the bay and they had waited, and they had even called Sammy a couple of times, but she never picked up. They never picked her up, and because of that, she booked it, but she didn't get in it, so they do like a cancellation fee kind of thing. So they knew that this car that she had gotten in was not a Uber. It was not even the same car that it was supposed to be. And so they were really, really worried. And I don't know whether that's when they then reported it to the police or what. But anyway, they go down to the police and they take this footage over. And the search for Sammy basically ended before it even began. Some guys were turkey hunting in a place called New Zion. They were in this field area, and I believe initially they didn't catch anything, so they moved on. And when they did, this is when they found a horrific discovery. And that horrific discovery was a female's body. They went ahead and rang a guy who was very familiar with the area, so he comes down because they were worried that they couldn't direct the police to there because they weren't that familiar with that area, but this guy was. So he comes down, he's like, yes, that's definitely a body, don't go anywhere near it, and we need to report it to the police. So that is what they do, and this gentleman manages to direct the police, there. The body is horrific. When she goes for autopsy, they find that 120 wounds with a sharp object. Honestly, you have like numerous pints of blood, and this body was Samantha's, sadly, Samantha Josephson, and left within her body was like a teaspoon of, well, a tablespoon or something like that. Basically like this much, a tiniest amount of blood ever. And she had wounds all over the place, around her neck, shoulders, head, and even one of them penetrated to her brain. She had a wound on one of her hands that had gone all the way through, so it's thought that she tried to defend herself from whoever was attacking her, and it just went all the way through because of the force. Lots around her neck, mainly on her right side, I think, and even some on her feet. Just this attack was barbaric, it was brutal, and it's just disgusting to even think about it. What she actually went through is awful. So obviously they don't have the identity of this lady. But then they are told about Samantha, who has gone missing. They are given a description of her clothing and things, and they realise that it probably is Samantha. I believe that her parents finally got there. Oh, before that, they got a phone call saying, when are you going to get here? And they give an estimate of time, and they were suspicious of that. Then they rang back again and said, come to the police station as soon as you get there, basically. So I think they kind of thought something was really wrong at that point, which is awful because they still had a decently long journey to go. So they get to the police station. I believe they had to identify Samantha's body because they were told the devastating news that she had been found, or at least they thought she had been found. And I don't think that they could identify her because they couldn't tell if it was her or not with all of the wounds and stuff that she had. I believe that's what I read somewhere anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it was Samantha. That, you know, they did the DNA testing and whatnot, and sadly, it was Samantha's body. When Greg got there, obviously, he's got this vital piece of information. I mean, the police would have found it eventually, but he just brought it to them. That Samantha had gotten in this car. Obviously, they told Greg that she had been found. Everyone is utterly devastated at this point. You know, just can't even imagine their pain with what happened to Samantha. But the police now have to find the monster that did this. So they work on this and they put out a bolo for the Chevy. It didn't take long for police to spot a similar looking car. They pull it over and the driver stops. They initially go over and say that they can smell like marijuana, and he admits to that. They tell him to get out of the car, and just as they're about to say, we've pulled you over because your car is a suspicious vehicle with regards to whatever, he starts putting his hands in his pockets, and the police officer gets nervous. Of course they do, because guns. And then he legs it. He's gone. He's like, Zoom is right out there. And I mean fast, like Sonic fast. He just goes whoom, and the police officer tries to run after him, but yeah, he's not quick enough. So they do catch him. I'm not saying they don't catch him, they do. But Jesus, he vanished very quickly. There's footage of that as well, like a police cam thing. Anyway, they finally catch him. They read him his Miranda rights. And, oh, I hadn't even told you his name, have I? His name is Nathaniel Rowland. Yeah, Nathaniel Rowland was 24. And he had some criminal history, but nothing. So, like, he had some unopened alcohol beverage in the car. He had some other violation with regards to that, but one of the more worrying ones was that he was one of a couple people that held up a woman at like gunpoint, made her drive to an ATM and basically made her draw money out and robbed her. Luckily, she, you know, they let her live. But yeah, he had that against him. They read him his random rights. He didn't speak. Eventually he did when they interviewed him. And of course he said that he was not guilty. He didn't do anything. He didn't know Samantha. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, they go and speak to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend... Oh, when they look at the car, sorry, they find a rose gold Apple iPhone. That is confirmed to be that Samantha's. They find other things. Amongst that is blood. There's lots of blood in this car. And no wonder with the brutal attack that happened on her. He says that he didn't do anything. He blacked out at a party, right? And then he woke up, his keys were gone, and somebody else must have done something horrific in his car, because when he finally found the keys and the car, it was covered in blood. Yeah, okay. They didn't find any marks on Nathaniel. Like, obviously she's trying to fight for her life and he's attacking her. Normally there would be some sort of scratches or whatever. But if he was wearing a jacket, which we'll go into in a minute, it wouldn't have been possible. You have a jacket on your arm, someone tries to scratch you, they're not going to get your skin. So, yeah. His family also believe that he did not do this, still believe that he did not do this, which just makes me really sad, because his family would have never ever thought that their son could do something like this. And despite all of the evidence pointing to him, they just can't accept it, which they lost their son in all this. Samantha's parents lost her, but I mean fully lost, like she is no longer here. But also they lost him because he's in jail, and well, they think he's innocent, but I don't think he's innocent. I think he definitely did it. Anyway, he wouldn't admit it ever. But the police did have a lot of stuff on him. They had Samantha's DNA under his fingernails. They had her blood all over the car. They spoke to his girlfriend, who also said that when basically he was supposed to wash a shirt for her from McDonald's. He came back, he took her to work, And they have like a visor thing as well. And she said, "Where's my visor?" And he said, "It's out in a field covered in blood." And she's like, "What the hell? What are you going on about?" And no, it's none of your business, he said. The car is full of blood. It's got a white sheet covering up the back seats, and she can see blood specks everywhere. And she's like, "What on earth is going on? Why is your car full of blood?" "None of your business," he tells her. She's got a kid. She's worried, so she doesn't tell anyone about this. But she's very forthcoming when the police approach her and ask her the information on it. She lets it all go and tells them everything. She was just really worried in that moment what you might do to her if she pushed. But yeah, there was blood all over the car. It was a horrific crime scene, as you can imagine. He tried to clean it up as well, but yeah, didn't do a very good job. The girlfriend also told the police that he had dumped a bag of stuff in the bin around the back. Luckily, that stuff was still there. There was a leather jacket full of scratch marks. There was a knife, which had it was a tool, like a survival tool, I guess, like a multi-purpose tool. And this is what the coroners didn't understand as well, because at some areas they had like a one section bit where it had gone in there, and another it was like pronged, but they knew it was like some sort of sharp weapon. And this explains it, because it had two blades on, and you could also put it down to just one, which is horrifically frightening. But yeah, that's what he used. Hang on. And then they also had CCTV footage of his car driving around before it picked up Samantha. It was driving around the area for 15 minutes, up and down. Basically, it looked like he was scouting for somebody to probably rob, is what they initially thought. They had CCTV of Nathaniel going to an ATM. His face was covered, but they knew it was him. He attempted to go to different ATMs, and 9 times he tried to draw money out of Samantha's account, but was unsuccessful because he didn't have the correct PIN code. So yeah, he couldn't do that. They had just a mountain of evidence on him. Also, her phone and his phone pinged in the same area. You know, there was just so much. Basically, despite him denying it, there was nothing that he could say that pointed to anyone else. That didn't really point to anyone else. So it was pretty cut and dry. And the jury found that also, because obviously he was arrested. They took, I believe, like an hour to deliberate his case and found him guilty of the murder of Samantha Josephson. The brutal murder. Now, his mother actually tried to speak up for him and himself to say that he was innocent, and she was shut down. Like, fully shut down. The judge was having none of it. He basically said that there is no dispute that Nathaniel of his innocence whatsoever. He has been found guilty, and I will not hear you say that he is innocent. She tried again to say that he's a nice boy and that he didn't do it, and she would just shut down again, because I think the brutality of this case, he was just like, nope, he's guilty, and that's that. So yeah, he got convicted to life in prison. It was thought that he was on the prowl trying to rob someone. He spotted Samantha trying to get in a different car on her own. Figured that he would pull up and see whether she tried to get in his, which she did, without checking, sadly. She was just desperate to get home. He then possibly turned the child locks on, which meant she couldn't get out. There were footprints on the inside of the car and the windows, which matched Samantha's, so she was trying to kick through the window to get out. It's not known when he started attacking her, or how long it took her to realise that she was being kidnapped. But then it's thought that he then attacked her from the driver's seat. Don't know whether it was while he was driving or what. As she's trying to boot through the window, probably. Just absolutely heartbreaking what happened to her. And how scared she must have been in those last moments. And just, no. I just can't even think about that. I don't understand how a potential robbery goes from that to stabbing someone 120 times. I just don't understand it. Samantha was 21 years old and her entire life ahead of her. She went out on an impromptu night out, and this monster stole her away because she got in the wrong car. I just can't even believe it. He was sentenced in 2021 and basically he will never get out, which thank God. Even the driver from the Uber company actually testified against him as well. Not against him, but, you know, basically said their point and their part of it. That she wasn't around, like, tried to pick her up. Now, her parents have tried, like I said, to do something in her name. They have got something called What's My Name? And basically it asks, now listen to this, everybody. Before you get into an Uber or a car share or anything like that, you ask them, what's my name? Because that person who is driving, if they are your Uber, they should know your name. So your full name as well, not just your first name, your full name that you have given them. They should know that. So that's one of the first things that you should do. And this is prompted by, you know, Sammy. And they also have another thing that's under the acronym of Sammy as well, which are like checks that you should do on before you get in such a car. And it's things like check the license plate, check it's the right car, check the driver's name, check they know who you are. Other people send out their information to like a family friend, someone like that. Other people also are on the phone to them so they know that they're not alone. Things like that, just to try and make your journey as safe as possible. And I know that things happen in these cars, but if you can try and do as many checks as you can to make sure that that's definitely your Uber, then please, please do. Because what happened to Samantha was absolutely devastating. It was just one slight lapse in, well, not even a lapse in judgment, because you would just never think that anyone would ever do that to you. If you got in the wrong car, normally they'd say, listen, lady, this is the wrong car, get out. Or what on earth are you doing? Is it? And then she's like, oh, sorry, I thought you were my Uber. And out she goes. Not that. Just not that at all. But he was prowling. He was after someone. And yeah, it was a very sad story all around. But basically, if you guys are out and about, especially this new year, if you're going on the booze, just be very, very careful. And make sure you do those checks. And Sammy's family have really tried to push this forward to try and prevent anything like this ever happening again, because their heartbreak is just intolerable. Yeah, that is all I have today on this case. If you have, well, I won't say enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do so. But that is the end of it. That is the end of the case of Samantha Josephson. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.